Greetings everyone, and welcome back to our Standing Watch program. Right now, the Iranian people are voting for a new president. But did you know that regardless of what the outcome is going to be, the relationship between Iran and Israel, and even the United States of America, is not going to be changed substantially? When President Obama gave his speech in Cairo, yes, there were Muslims who welcomed the speech. There were Israelis who welcomed the speech. But then there were also some, or perhaps even many, who did not. Yes, it is true that Mr. Netanyahu is receiving criticism in his own country. Let me read to you from an excerpt from the New York Times dated June 8. And this publication said that Ben Cuspit, a columnist, wrote Sunday in the newspaper Maverick that Mr. Netanyahu, quote, who opted to squander his period of grace on meaningless reassessment meetings, is now going to have to be particularly creative if he wants to renew trust between the United States and Israel. Because it is realized that the relationship between the United States and Israel is deteriorating. But it's also realized that the relationship between the US and Iran is not necessarily improving either. Listen to these comments, which were published by the Washington Post on June 4 in response to Mr. Obama's speech in Cairo. It talks about Iran's supreme leader, and I'm not talking about the presidency. Most people think that perhaps the president of Iran is the supreme leader. That's not true. Iran's supreme leader dismissed President Obama's speech at Cairo University Thursday, saying the Muslim world continues to, quote, hate America. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said that, quote, beautiful speeches, close quote, could not remove the hatred felt in the Muslim world against America. People of the Middle East, the Muslim region, and North Africa, people of these regions hate America from the bottom of their hearts, Khamenei said. He also denounced Israel as a cancerous tumor in the heart of the Islamic world. Now, who is that guy? Is he really speaking with authority? This article goes on to say that Khamenei, who served as president of Iran for 8 years in the 1980s, succeeded Khomeini as supreme leader in 1989, becoming the nation's highest-ranking political and religious authority. As such, he is more powerful than President Mohammed Ahmadinejad and appoints many key leaders, including the commanders of the armed forces and members of national security councils dealing with defense and foreign affairs. So as I said, whoever the new president of Iran is going to be, the world still has to deal with that guy. Now, listen also to some of the comments of the Israeli parties to Mr. Obama's speech. Here's a comment from a representative of the Likud party saying, the president has crossed all lines. He has made a covenant with the Arab world and rewarded it for more than 60 years of aggression. Then you have a representative of the National Union Party saying, the Zionist vision of the rebuilding of the land of Israel is stronger than any president or government. We outlasted Pharaoh, we will outlast Obama. And then here's a comment by a representative of the Jewish Home Party saying, the speech arouses fears and concerns regarding the future of American relations toward Israel. I fear an erosion of the traditional American commitment to Israel's security, needs, and its very existence and independence. So the reaction was quite mixed, to say it the least, and to put it in very flattering terms. Now, what about the vote, the election which is going on in Iran today, as I speak, June the 12th? Here's an article by Der Spiegel Online, which was published yesterday, June 11. Let me just read a few excerpts from it. They ask the question, whoever is going to be the next president, is that going to make any difference insofar as their nuclear program is concerned? It says, if the Israeli Air Force were to bomb Iran, it is safe to assume that the top-secret Iranian nuclear facility near Isfahan would be at the top of the list of the targets. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his hardline government are already believed to have decided to attack Iran. According to the Israeli newspaper Haaretz, Netanyahu plans to give the new U.S. government's efforts to achieve a negotiated solution until the end of the year to produce results. If they are unsuccessful, the paper writes, the Israelis will strike, even without Washington's approval, if necessary. Then Der Spiegel Online goes on to say, Mohammed el-Baradei, winner of the Nobel Peace Prize and head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, has warned that such an attack could ignite a catastrophe and a catastrophic inflagration throughout the Middle East. U.S. expert David Albright believes that it will be virtually impossible to wipe out Iran's nuclear program militarily. The Israelis would have to bomb Iran for weeks and yet would still not have eliminated a large number of facilities, according to Albright. Now that's quite interesting in light of biblical prophecy. Now the Bible doesn't tell us that Israel will fight against Iran, but the Bible does give us prophecies for the end time, warning that Israel will receive a military defeat in the not too distant future. And it also prophesied that other nations will be affected by it. I'd like to read to you from the book of Hosea. Hosea is dealing with end-time prophecies. Hosea is not dealing with the time when he lived. He's not talking about ancient Israel. He's talking about the future. In the 5th chapter, beginning in verse 10, this is what's being stated here. The princes of Judah are like those who remove a landmark. Isn't that interesting? Those who remove a landmark. I will pour out my wrath on them like water, God says. Ephraim is oppressed and broken in judgment. Now, to understand this prophecy, you need to know who Ephraim is today. It goes on to say, because he willingly walked by human precepts. Therefore I will be to Ephraim like a moth, and the house of Judah like rottenness. When Ephraim saw his sickness, talking about something which is happening internally, and Judah saw his wound, something which is happening externally, a wound is inflicted on Judah externally, then Ephraim went to Assyria and sent to King Jareb. Now again, you need to know who Assyria is today. Who is that King Jareb? There was never a King Jareb in ancient Syria. This is talking about today, and it's talking about a country or a number of countries which are, of course, known today with different names, going back to ancient Assyria. And I'm not talking about Iraq and the Middle East. This goes on to say, yet he cannot cure you, nor heal you of your wounds. So this King Jareb of Assyria is not going to be able to help either Judah or Ephraim. Maybe is not going to be willing to do it either. For I, God says, will be like a lion to Ephraim and like a young lion to the house of Judah. Even I, will tear them and go away, and I will take them away, and no one shall rescue. I will return to my place till they acknowledge their offense. Then they will seek my face. In their affliction they will earnestly seek me. Prophecies for the immediate future, talking about a defeat of the state of Israel in a war. Talking about Ephraim, modern Ephraim, being afflicted internally, looking for help from other countries, is not going to receive it. And when they are in deep affliction, it says, then they will recognize what they are doing. In biblical terms, they will repent, and God will be listening to them then. We have prepared 2 booklets which give you much more information as to what is happening in the Middle East and what those biblical prophecies mean and what the identities of those countries and nations are which are mentioned here. One of those booklets is entitled Europe in Prophecy, and the other one is entitled The Fall and Rise of Britain and America. Please order free copies of these booklets or go to our website, standingwatch.org, and read them online. For today, I thank you for your attention, and I look forward to seeing you again in the not-too-distant future. Ian Norbert Link for the Standing Watch program.